I am the Narcissist.
Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. This is more Narcissist trash talk, and this one I'm titling For Your Sanity. I am TJ, your host, and this will be hopefully a brief overview of just a few of the little tactics that these creatures like to use, and just some reassurance that your initial beliefs or initial interpretation of such things about to be discussed was actually accurate, but you have to realize what kind of being you're dealing with. One of the things these people will do is they set the situation up to make you feel like you are the abuser, which I've covered in other videos. This is supposed to be a quick tidbit overview, so if you want more depth and longer time videos, they're out there. One of their tactics is to present themselves as like a really great person, a wonderful friend, the best person ever, and basically any number of what the general population would see as positive traits. So they will tell you, like they skip all the normal showing, which would be like 100 different interactions, and each time they always told the truth. Well, that would tell you, oh, I can trust this. But see, they want to tell you after a date or two, oh, you can trust me, because they don't have time for all that stuff. But the point of it is that they describe themselves as so great, and they'll do things to demonstrate this greatness, and they're basically setting things up because they're going to tell you all these great characteristics they have, yet it's inevitable when you interact with these people over time that you're going, if you're paying attention, you're going to see example one of how they're not this one virtue they claim they have, and then example two of how they're not this one. And after a while, you're going to have a big discrepancy going on, the cognitive dissonance in your head when the person's telling you, I'm always generous, but then you find out they do something very non-generous. Well, the problem here is they've set this system up where they claim to be perfect, and you, if you're a critical thinker, may challenge them. Like, hey, you said you always give to people in need, but I heard you insult that homeless person on the street. What's the deal? And that's a valid question if that's what's happened. But the problem is these people, because they're in a fantasy world, will say, oh, I just did that to that one homeless one because, and there's a retarded excuse after which we don't even need to mention. But the point of it is, it doesn't matter what they've just said to you. So, for your sanity, you're actually right. And if they were a real person who was really nice and whatever they're claiming to be, then they would stop and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you just said, that's right. But no, you won't get that from these people. And that's a clue for you, too. If you're dealing with someone who blatantly contradicts themselves, and when you say, hey, you did say this, but you did that, and if you get a response like, oh, well, I am like I said, I just did that because, it's a clue you're dealing with one of these monsters, because anything other than something like, oh my goodness, that I guess that's true, who am I fooling? Anything other than that is fake. It's phony. They have a mask on, but they're not doing a good job of convincing of it. So again, for your sanity, you're right to think this, and don't expect to hear them say what I just said they wouldn't say. But they set you up because they're telling you all these great things they are, and after a long period, you're going to grow tired of hearing them continue to describe themselves in these wonderful ways. So it'll be a natural tendency for you, the target, to, let's say, look, would you stop saying that you are all these great things? And then you start to list, like, you're not that great thing you claim to be. And when you go through your list of, for example, 1, 2, whatever the list is of the things that contradict their claims, you have just cast yourself in the role of the abuser. So now, this person is going to tell you that you are so wrong. How dare you put him or her down by telling these insults, they view them as. And I say, for your sanity, these are not insults. These are a matter of a person claiming to be Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, and you happen to know of 30 examples of imperfect behavior. Now keep in mind, you never said to the person, hey, you need to be perfect. No, this is their doing. Because remember, they came to you and said that they were perfect. So you, being a critical observer, you hear those words, but then you see things that don't fit, which is typical for these types. And so if you try to question, like, well, wait a second, and they'll tell you that you're wrong or explain it away, but after a while you get to a point where you're sick of it because you think, who does this person think they're fooling? So then you may be tempted to say, look, I don't think you are these things, and here's why. Well, guess what? They will run to the flying monkeys, which are probably your friends they've befriended for this very purpose, to tell them how unstable and how mean you are and how they love you so much and all you do is insult them. And yet it's a complete distortion of the facts because they've set it up this way. They're saying, hi, I'm perfect, I'm wonderful, I never do anything wrong. And you're like, yes you do. You do things wrong. And so you become the nag who's saying, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. But they paint it to their friends or flying monkeys as if you just walked up to them one day and said, hey, you're not any good. You're bad this, you're bad that. And no, that's not what you're doing. They have set it up beforehand for you to tear it down. And of course they leave out the first part to the flying monkeys and just tell the part where you reacted, so then you do actually look like the abuser. And many times you will think you are, because the flying monkeys will be like, why are you so hard on that person? Why do you expect them to be perfect? I don't. The person said it was, and I pointed out how it wasn't. But see, they don't see things that way, and if they've never dealt with such a thing, they won't get it. They'll just know that, well, did you tell the person that they were this and this and this? And you're like, well, yes, it is, but you're abusive. And they will believe it. And these monsters have mastered this game, unfortunately. So even if you attempt to describe why you said what you said, a lot of times they won't get it, and you'll be the bad guy or gal. For your sanity, another thing to look out for is when these child people try to, again, rewrite reality and speak in ways that basically accuse you of being responsible for their behaviors. Now, I understand if you're dealing with a person who makes these claims, you may, upon first instinct, say something like, that's not possible, but these people will use their sick abilities to keep that straight face as if they're serious, saying, no, actually, this is the way it is. And you'll be tempted to believe it, even though it's totally irrational, totally retarded, but they will try. And they're convincing in many cases because they don't get embarrassed. They don't have any shame for saying something stupid. They stick with it, and you are supposed to question yourself then with gaslighting, but, well, maybe it's true. This is someone different. Maybe I am being for your sanity. No, don't fall down that trap. But to illustrate this particular thing they try to do, I would just use a real example of, I was involved with a person for a while and had a little slight feeling the person's just dishonest and not to be trusted. But at the same time, I was living with it, so I had this kind of like a running joke, which actually was invented, but I figured it probably could be true, where I mentioned one of the person's friends and said, you know, your friend, she told me you just can't be trusted. And I would be told, oh, yes I can, yes I can. Well, down the line, it turned out to be true. The person could not be trusted and was caught in horrifying things. Horrifying lies and cover-ups. So this is where I'm tying this into. I was told this line. Well, you always said that I couldn't be trusted. So I figured I might as well not be trustworthy. Which is a totally retarded response, because if you doubt someone's trustworthiness and you state that to them, you would think if they were a real human being, then they would do everything in their power to prove that the person is trustworthy. But that doesn't happen with these. Well, they might pretend to be, but then when you catch them doing untrustworthy things, you'll be like, wait a second, how could you do this? Well, they will be tempted to blame this on you, like that previous example. I've seen all kinds of other examples, and the rule to remember is this, which you can say this to them, good luck, because you'll be you'll be discredited, even though they're children, and this is the real truth. The real truth, as we've seen in many of our psychology and communication books, is that the only person responsible for someone's behavior would be themselves. So if your wife ran off with another man and you found out, and she says, well, it's your fault because you ignored me, wrong. It's her fault because she chose to do it. And that's one of the important lessons I've picked up, is that people behave in ways based on what they choose to do. Such as the wife who runs off with another man behind the husband's back. She has to reach a point at one point where she realizes, I'm married, but I'm going to mess with this person. Well, in many people's situations, they might think that and have plans to do it, but then they'll stop and they'll think, wait, do I really want to do that? Should I? Maybe I shouldn't. And then they don't. But see, some people, like these Clustsr B monsters, they're all about doing it and just not being caught. So if by chance they do get caught, well, guess what? It's not their fault. It's yours, because you didn't trust them, because you accused them of being untrustworthy, or any number of excuses. But keep in mind, for your sanity, that they had to make the decision to actually do whatever they did. And I have seen countless examples of fools I've been involved with that would lead you to believe that people just walk around doing things they don't even want to do only because of something you did or said they did them, and you're like, that's not reality. I had sex with all those people behind your back only because you had said whatever, and I didn't want to. But wrong. Because if they didn't want to, when the opportunity presented itself, it would be like, thanks for the offer, but no thanks, click. But no, they want to go ahead and do it, and then if they're caught, well, it's your fault. And do not believe it, but again, do not challenge it. I would just leave the room or the place you're at, because you will not win such an argument when dealing with such a person, even though you've already won it by what you've said. But they will not say to you, oh dear, you're right. They will defend their position to the end. So it's kind of pointless to keep, because many of us think, surely this person can't believe that I'm responsible for whatever it did, and you think you can like say it a different way because you believe that maybe this person really does believe. It doesn't matter what you say or how you say it. Even if you give a lot of evidence, giving a really good point of your view, doesn't matter. It's not going to be accepted because these mask-wearing children don't have anything else to draw from as far as like a debate or a discussion. It's just going to be, no, I did that all I did because you had done whatever you did, and that's it. And you could tear it apart a million ways, and it doesn't matter. So it's kind of pointless. Plus, I think they get a kick or a thrill out of seeing you trying to convince them, and it ain't worth it. And it only gets worse. And the final part of For Your Sanity will be if you're lucky enough to be in the beginning stages of such an encounter with such a vicious, evil creature who looks like a sweet little lamb on the surface, is keep in mind the game that they play, which is normally to shower you with basically inappropriate levels of attention and flattery and all the crap they do in the love bombing idealization. And they love to try to create guilt. They've probably chosen you because you may have shown that you have empathy and emotions and things they've never experienced. So keep in mind when they come over and wash your car, when they come over and cut your yard, just because you said, oh, I've got to cut the yard tomorrow, or anything like that I've actually covered elsewhere. Keep in mind for your sanity that you did not ask for any of these favors. But see, these favors are usually being done so that when you eventually catch on to the fact you're dealing with a monster rat and you start to pull back or say, I don't think this is such a good idea, maybe we shouldn't see each other, then you'll be thrown back with, well, you ungrateful, selfish person, I didn't need to do your yard and your car, and your thoughts need to remain, right, and I didn't ask you to either. But it probably doesn't do a good job or anything good to say that, I didn't ask you to, because they'll be like, well, you enjoyed it, didn't you? You like it. So it just creates an argument. So you may even just say, you know what? If it's so important, I'll give you some money for the work you did. And of course you'll be told, I don't want your money, la la la. You're just so... Don't believe it. It's just an awkward position to be in because they usually start off with all that love bombing crap. So it's true. It does feel unbalanced because here you are, the beneficiary of all these wonderful gifts that you never asked for, and then you're like saying, you know what, we should end this. They've set it up. Like I said before, they set the whole thing up. So you appear to be the ungrateful witch, when really you're recognizing, yeah, you did all that stuff as an insurance policy against when I find out you're really a monster, and now you're referring back to it. Get out of here! But again, it's difficult as far as how to get rid. It's just important to understand what it is, but don't expect to be able to get a rational discussion out of the person because it doesn't happen. You have to do this one on your own. Until next time, be safe and have a great night.
I am the narcopath. I was chosen to be a female vocalist. However, after seeing so many movie moguls there, I decided, you know what? I want to be an actress too. I want to be on all the big screens with all the fancy actors, and you know what? They weren't interested. It appears the people in charge of such decisions are pedophiles who want only young boys. Which means I should have stayed a boy if I wanted to be a star on the screen. But we'll see. We'll just see what happens.
And as far as your mother wanting to go to church every Sunday, ha! All I could do is chuckle to myself, knowing what her husband was doing the night before when she thought he was at Bible study class. That's my kind of thing. Ah, that poor witch. It's not my job to tell her what to do, but someday she'll find out. He was with me and his own son. I let them in.
If you want to see me nude with my 7-inch heels on, come on down to the Shady Lady. I've got what you want.